At the time of this recording, Len Carroll is 83 years of age, a semi-retired cowboy, and he's remembering his earlier years as a working cowboy and his love for horses. In the world of cowboying, Len Carroll would be considered the real thing. He's lived a life that one could only dream of. Presently living on his acreage south of Austin, Manitoba, near the Manitoba Sandhills, Len will tell us that he started his cowboy life at a very young age, and he's always thought of himself as a cowboy. He's traveled most, if not all, of Canada, spending the bulk of his cowboy days in Alberta, where he cowboyed on some of the biggest ranch sites in the country. During his cowboy days in Alberta, Len was asked to be a print media model for a major magazine, a cowboy stuntman in some major Hollywood movies. These are all fond memories for Len. Len Carroll is friendly, quiet, and humbly shy. He holds his memories close to his heart. In his working days, he was a hunting guide, and in later years, a nationally recognized horse and cattle judge. And Len was always interested in writing. He has come to be a well-respected cowboy poet, the recipient of many top awards, both nationally and internationally. And to this day, he remains a frequent invited guest at many cowboy gatherings. He loves to share his memories of days gone by. Len Carroll is truly the real thing. Being a cowboy is not what Len does or did. It is who he is. Len still maintains his cowboy roots, and although life is a little bit slower now, Len enjoys it, and he begins by telling us how it all started, how he always felt he was destined to be a cowboy, almost by design.
I was born at Treeherne, Manitoba, on Christmas Day in the winter of 1927 and 8. Well, it was still 27, a week yet. But my folks farmed it north of Treeherne, about 9 miles from town, and they farmed there. It's always kind of a weird thing to me. Why? I came from a large family. There were 9 of us in the family. We farmed, raised cattle, a normal thing, not unusual. However, all of my siblings had no interest in that kind of life. They all went their own way, and we became professional in something else. I had no choice, seemed to me, that I just knew I got a cowboy somehow. Somehow I have to be a cowboy. Other kids, like all kids, lots of boys, grow up, want to be cowboys. It's only a phase. They thought that would be with me. And even then I knew that wasn't. They can play at it, but I am. I had to be, that was all. In various circumstances of other people and other episodes where, well, I have to admit, a lot of these things are throwbacks to some other time beyond us here. And I'm quite sure of that. That's a personal opinion, but I've seen too many things that, babies, little children that were, just natural with, became pianists or something. They weren't old enough to learn that right there. It was about the same with me. I just knew it. Get that rolling here. I wanted to be a cowboy.
If we could take you back to the early 1940s, we'd have to remind you that life was different back then. Len worked long hours, and the work was ongoing. As is usually the case, circumstances create opportunities. Len would stay on the farm, hone his skills, and do the work.
It was 1943, early May 1943. We were farming. My older brothers were all at war. My younger sister was home, and my brother, 1 year older than I. We were still left at home with my dad and mother. We still farmed with horses. We farmed a lot of land too, and we used a lot of horses. So, we've been growing up with horses, work horses particularly, since day one. Well, this particular day, Saturday, I was taking grade 9 by correspondence at the local school at that time, and Saturday was work day. Spring, get ready for, we had cattle, fences need fixing. Dad was farming. I was out this particular day, out of sight from home around some bush fencing all afternoon. My brother Jack, I can't recall where he was, but I came in about 5 o'clock up to the building. It's time to milking time, chore time, normal. So it was a cold, rotten, miserable May day, as it'll happen sometimes. And Mother was working in the garden, as always. We had an acre or two garden, and Mother was always there. And so I walked straight out to the garden. I see Mother out there, and Mother's concerned. She said, "Man, there's something wrong down that field. Your dad's horses have been standing down there. I don't know how long, but way too long. Something's wrong there." And they're about a half a mile away down by a bush. And so I went to the barn to get my saddle horse, go down and look. And as I come out of the barn, I see my dad crawling along the fence line, almost home. So I went and got him and helped him in, and he was in bad shape. He'd got in a wreck down there with the horses. He had a bronco mare that he'd been using a lot, and this mare had struck him, knocked him down, run over him some equipment, and the whole outfit, 8 of them, ran off and made a big circle in the field. Mother didn't see that. She wasn't in the garden yet, but she knew something was there. When she came up there, standing there and too long. And so we neither in those years had telephone, radio, nor a car. That was the way it was. But we had a neighbor half a mile away across the field, a very good neighbor who had carried a mail route, so he had an old car. Got my dad in the house. I rode over to the neighbor, and he was home. We got him, and we took my dad to the hospital in Portage and put him to bed. And we had a conference at home, Mother and Dad, Mother and Jack, and my brother Jack, and my sister and I. And my brother was intent fully on going to school, getting an education any way he could. My sister was only, 12? Yeah, not even 12, 10. And so there we were. So it was settled right there. I did the farming. And I never got back to school for another 12 years. So that's how it started.
Len was born and raised on a farm and had a passion for working with horses, and he enjoyed a good challenge. Len got into cowboying almost by accident and by chance. Sometimes things happen that stay with you forever. Len recalls one of those times, his first big challenge, his first horse to break, and subsequently his first paying customers.
I can recall. I'd rid every damn horse in the country. I'd ridden them all. I was a cowboy and had an old saddle. And I'm out plowing summer fallow with 8 horses going up and down the field with and afternoon, it's in summer now, season's over, done that. And here a car, a nice shiny car came up this trail through the field, so I drove up to the sun, stopped and waited, and wondered what that about. Nice shiny car, 3 men got out. One of them I recognized, he local horse buyer, dealer. He mostly bought bush horses, we call bush horses that went to bush camps in the winter. But he would buy good horse, saddle horse types too if he'd get them cheap. And he had a bunch of horses near our place, so he had stopped at the local store and see if there's anyone around here who could break horses for him. And I guess said, well, there's one guy you can go see, I guess, Len Carroll. Lives just half a mile out here. So they came out and they stopped and they said, they're kind of looked kind of odd looks. I said, we were looking for a film named Len Carroll. And I said, well, yes, I'm he. They really, I don't think you want to see a little old 15-year-old kid. I kind of surprised him.
I take it that you found your niche then.
Well, no, I knew it before that. It wasn't what I wanted. That was just part of it. It was ongoing ever since I was 4 years old. That's what I'm going to do. And I don't know why, because anything that connected just rung a bell right there. It was like I'd done another life before that. That's exactly what it was like. And I think it was. But anyway, I rode those horses, and they're big old... they decided to bring me one. They came out one day with a big old stock truck. And the bronc in there, big 6-year-old soil gelding, and in a stock truck. And it wasn't halter broken nothing. I said, I didn't dare leave the field. It was unethical to leave a field in the middle of the day if you were a farmer. So I told him, big old barn there, if you just back that truck to the barn, dump them in there, down the far end, there's a pen, you can shove them in, and I'll be in later. So they did $15 a head. Not to ride him twice, to ride him till he's ready to go down. That's what gets you today. I called somebody the other day. The advertising breaking horses. I said, how much? $700.
Wow.
Anyway, I got the horses rode. And I wrote some stories about them too, but I always said that those old bronc ponies taught me a lot. And I started learning on them. There was nobody in that country, Bill, where I was raised. There were great horsemen, heavy horsemen, but there weren't the cowboys, not a one. And there weren't magazines. You never saw a magazine about cowboys. You were just all up to you. You figured it out, So I broke a bunch of them horses. My dad finally came back from the hospital in a couple of months. And I was on about my third bronc. And he said to these people, if you're going to bring any more of them horses to that boy, you better pay him $20. So that's kind of where it went from there.
Len still gets around pretty good. He wakes up in the morning and he does his chores. It was a shiny summer morning when Dale Hayes came by for a visit just to check in and say hi. Dale and Len have been friends for a long time, and when these two old cowboys get together, the coffee's brewing and their memories come alive. On this day in Len's bunkhouse, Len talks about the second batch of horses he received and his anticipation, excitement, a little bit of apprehension, and a lot about his inexperience as to how he was going to handle what was ahead of him.
The biggest problem was figuring out how to get on these horses. I didn't know about hobbling or tying a foot up or a thing, but there was no teachers around for cowboys, at least, and I had to devise ways. If I can get straddle these horses, I can mostly ride them. It's getting set on them. So, well, the soil horse, the first one, I finally cured him. Did a thing I would never think of doing now. I put him in the barn in a big double horse stall, low ceiling, and I tied a rope from the top of his bridle head stall up over a beam and brought it down just so and took a rap on the saddle horn and stepped on him. What a stupid thing to do. But about 2-3 of that, and he would stand anywhere after that. But this black mare, I can recall, she did buck me off hard, and I'm sitting, and I don't know how she did that. She'd go high in the air, and you couldn't see anything. She was all gone. That's what happens, and all of a sudden I'm sitting flat in my butt in the corral dust, and I'm looking at that mare. Oh, she's pitching, and I never forget the stirrups and the saddle are smacking together above the seat every jump. And I remember a couple of years later at Calgary, at the rodeo stampede, I see a fellow come out on a little black horse, and it bucked him off. And that's the only time I ever saw stirrups doing the same thing. But I figured out a cure for her. In our big long barn, we had a hay yard on that side of it, and we stacked hay in there, and this was a side door in the barn, narrow one. We carried the hay in through. And I got an idea. Now, if I got her in that stall, that single stall, and put a bar behind her, then I can get on her in there. But, so I had to rig up a spring and a trigger to pull the door open when I'm ready. And so I got that figured out. And I had a rope that run back down beside me, and I got all set and pulled the ripcord. The door would fly open, and it was like those old shotgun shoots. And we come out, and I'm getting her rode, and she's jumping. Her thing was to high jumping. She wasn't rough to ride, just high. She'd bail high in the air. It's a lot of spring, and we're going straight across that yard, and of course we're coming to a fence, and it's another 5-strand barbed wire fence. And I'm getting her rode. I'm just, I'm amazed. I'm getting her covered. Till we're one jump from the fence, straight on, and her head's buried. And I thought, oh my, here's the wreck. We're going through at the next jump. So I just give up everything. And she swapped ends the next jump, and I went on through the fence. Anyhow.
You know, I was thinking about what you were telling me a few minutes ago. Cowboy, in those years, working on a ranch, living in a bunkhouse, how much do you think he'd make? Do you remember?
How much what?
How much do you think he'd make per month?
Oh,
That would be for a 6 or 7 day week, wouldn't it?
usually 6, yeah. 1950, be around $60.
$60.
Yeah, and
And those days were usually about 14, 16 hours long, weren't they?
they depended on what kind of an outfit you hooked up with. On ranches, especially Cowboy, you never know how long a day was going to be. It might be 4 hours, it might be 24. You know, it could vary.
So what time did you jingle up the horses?
Oh, always, depending on the time of year, too. I'd roll out of the bunk 4:30 if I was jingling. And start then, and have them penned by 5:30. Some ranches, like the old McIntyre, was a big outfit, 6 cowboys, steady, a big remuda, 6 head of horses in your mount. We took week about to jingle, and to jingle, of course, means to pen them up in the mornings. The term is, it means to go in and gather your remuda, your cavvy for the day, and or you're trailing them along with a wagon or something like that. But it means trailing horses. And the term jingle comes from the fact that lots of times you'll have bells on a few horses because they're spread out in little bunches, and as you gather them together, it's the sound of jingle. It's the jingle sound. So generally they just call it the jingler. It's called the jingle of horses. If you were in a bunkhouse and not you, somebody else was jingling, and it's just coming daylight, and there's 100 horses coming in, really smoking like they usually did, it was something you'd like to wake up to. It was a good sound. It was part of your life.
You brought to my mind another picture. Your good-sized rancher friend mugging a horse.
Oh, yeah, mugging.
I saw a fellow one time attempt to mug a horse, and it was amazing how that horse could just move him around.
Mm-hmm.
For the future, would you tell people what mugging is?
Well, it's a crude term. It means, another term for it properly is to ear down. But we just call it mug 'em. You get a horse, you rope a horse, say a bronc, and you can't do anything with them. In fact, let me just portray. One time, another fellow and I started out one morning where we'd gathered horses for weeks, and now we had most of them gathered, and we sorted a bunch to start, to break out. There was 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds in that bunch, and there was 15 head of them. And the boss said, I have to go down on business for a week or day or so. You boys are going to start them broncs. So we did. And the way we'd do it was we pin them all in a round pen. And suppose you take the first one, your pick. We work in pairs. So you pick out one, and we'll sort him off into another pen by himself. Well, the thing is, you rope him. That's the first thing, rope him by the neck. My job as your partner is to go down the line and mug him. That is to get him by the ears, get on his face and hold him still, twist his ears and bring his head down so you can saddle him and get on him. You know? So that's called mugging. So when you see, they used to have the wild horse race at Calgary, maybe still do, they would put a whole chute load of broncs in a pan, they load the chutes with broncs, put a halter on them. They're not halter broke, they're wild. And there's 3 men to the team, and they put long rope shanks on them and pass it up. And when they say go, they open all the gates. There's maybe 10 broncs out there. And the trick is there's a certain line down near the catch pen. One is anchor man. He's on the end of the rope as an anchor. The next one's the mug man. He goes up the line, gets on his face, and the other one saddles him and rides him. They turn him loose, and the first one to ride one across that line, of course, is the winner. And mugging the horse is pretty tricky. The old way was to bite their teeth, you know, bite their ear with their teeth and just suck down them. And lots of them old horses, they'll take a man in the air with them and just...
I saw my dad go airborne one time in the middle 1940s on one like that.
Excuse me, I got to tell you this. I had a rodeo one time with the Jasper. There was an older man there that was noted as bronc man. And he'd been sipping quite a bit that day. And the wild horse race came up. And he was mugging, supposed to be mugging, and this old horse was giving him a terrible time and shaking him loose. And somebody yelled, "Bill, bite his ear!" "He got no damn teeth!" Yeah, that was mugging. We better change that subject.
Len has always had a passion for working with horses, even as a youngster. He enjoys their company, and he has good horse sense. Over the years, of course, he's gained a lot of experience and learned a lot about horses. Even to this day, he finds it hard to pinpoint what makes a good horse handler.
Well, I think I'd have to answer that by experience. It's not something you can just say, go do it like this. It's something, every horse will be different, and so that it can't be learned without hands-on. Horses are all different. Personalities, and they're totally different. Some horses you may have to be a little more stern with than others, but never rough. There will be people who walk into a barn and they have a manner about them that horse senses, or their voice, and horses are alert immediately. They're uneasy. Other ones have a manner and a voice where they can just, when you walk up to a horse, and horse, I know him. They relate by feel, instinct. Back in the 30s, we always had brood mares around the farm. I'd be 4 years old, and these were workhorses. But they'd come up on a hot day like this in the 30s, lie in the dust in the shade of the barn. And the colts would lie flat out the days, go to sleep. If mother couldn't find me, I'd be laying with the colts. And yeah, I was always, horses were always there with me. But I go a step further than that too, but I doubt, I hesitate to do that.
Traveling has been a way of life for Len. He's traveled most of Canada, and he's worked on many ranches. As a traveling cowboy, there were certain things that you had to have, and there were certain things that you had to own.
A cowboy owned usually very few things. He always owned his saddle and his bedroll. Other than that, he might have more than that, but that's what he must have, a saddle and a bedroll. And he, this old saddle here I had, most cowboys had their saddles made to order to suit them from some reliable saddle makers. This one I ordered in the fall of '48, and it was, this is a letter from Riley McCormick in Calgary. They were the premier saddle makers at that time, and it says, Mr. L.D. Carroll, Jumping Pound, Alberta. Dear Sir, This is to advise you that your saddle is now complete, and the balance owing is $133. You can either send us this amount at your convenience, or if you prefer, we will be glad to ship COD. And thank you, Mr. Riley McCormick, and it's signed by Mr. McCormick himself. I kept that. And,
up here on the wall is...
Yeah. This is a bridle here that I made in the bunkhouse in that same winter as the saddle was made. The bit is a trophy bit, and has my initials on it. And these old spurs go with it. I'll just hang them back up there with the bridle. And the rest of this stuff is, there's a hackamore down there.
Tell me about the hackamore.
Well, it's a thing that's commonly used then to start young horses in. This is a heavy one. I used it for older horses to start them.
What are these boxes down here? You call them packs?
I'm sorry? Oh, these, when you're packing, these are packed boxes, and they're built in a shape to sort of fit the side of a horse. You put the pack saddle on the horse, and certain ropes, you put one box on either side, and they're held in a certain sort of particular hitches with rope. And then you can put a bed roll or something else on top across, and then you put a tarp over, called a manty, covers everything. And then you throw the diamond hitch over all, and snug everything down.
And there's your lariat.
Yes, that's one of them. There's several of them, but that's one. That's a little different kind of saddle, but the saddles come in all kinds of sizes and shapes, and however you like them.
Len spent some time in Alberta, and when he was there, he was asked to be a stuntman for some Hollywood movies being shot up in the mountains. I asked him how he got involved and when it started to happen.
About 50, back in the early 50s. Yeah, early 50s, 55, 53, 50, those years.
How did you get that?
They came to Canada to make some movies up here in the mountains, so I was riding. I was kind of a jigger boss. We supplied the livestock for that movie, and there was 60, 80 horses, a bunch of wild cattle, and we hunted them up for the movie. Well, I'm riding around, and Anthony Mann was the director of that picture. He came over and he said, I wonder if you would mind, doing a few extras here. It looks like you can ride a horse. Yeah, so we started doing that, and that was a lot of fun, though.
What kind of a stunt would you have done?
Oh, there's various ones. You've fallen off a horse, and you might fall off a running horse. And
Was that hard for you?
Well, not then, no. No, I'm 25 years old, heaven's sakes, and a horseback all the time. You learn how to roll off a horse. And, stuff like that. Oh, and sometimes you'd be on the other side of the thing. You'd be a deputy, a lawman, and we'd chase Jimmy Stewart for a while and blaze away and shoot at him, and it was a lot of fun.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, I liked it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. But,
Do you remember the name of the movie?
well, one was River of No Return. It was Marilyn Monroe and Robert Mitchum. That was the Indian story. And then there was another one called Rosemarie. That was a remake of a mounted police picture, musical. I was a mountie in that one and rode around. And then Jimmy Stewart, there was, what's his name? The Far Country. And then a few others. But I remember John McIntyre was in that. And, we had a lot of fun with that one.
You supplied the cattle and the horses.
Yeah, we recharged the cattle. We hunted them up in the brush country and trucked them to them. And no, we were mostly out on location, camped out somewhere. We didn't hardly ever get down. And most times it was just off somewhere. And long days. I was doing 2 jobs. I was digger boss at the horse livestock as well. So I had to keep them going, but
You were becoming a legend in your own time.
yeah.
You were becoming a legend in your own mind.
yeah. I can remember Tony Mann came to me one day, and Ruth Roman was the female star in that one picture of Jimmy Stewart. And she, you know what we said, couldn't ride flat ass in a wagon box, you know. Tony Mann said to me one day, he said, "Then could you take that woman out there and teach her to ride a little bit?" I took her out there, but you can't do that. You can't teach her to ride. You can help a little bit, not too much. But Jimmy Stewart was great to work with. Walter Brennan was the best, I think. And, Walter used to come down to, well, like we'd be camped out in tents and a picket line of horses, and we'd be there. And in the evening, it might be near someplace, but most of the actors would go into town to a lodge or better things. And Walter Brennan would come down and camp with us. You know, Walter's a cowboy one, and he was funny. But there were a lot of great people there too. Some of the one stuntman I remember well. He wrote a book when he quit, and he sent me a copy. Chuck Robeson. He doubled for John Wayne for about 40 years. Big salty guy. He was good.
Len was not only a stuntman, but he was an ad model for men's shaving accessories in a popular hunting magazine. He was asked to do it, and he was quite comfortable.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't sure just exactly what they wanted, but just sort of forget the camera people and just go do my thing, and they would, in a position they preferred, but they just take the pictures, and I just go ahead and do it. We had to wait a few days beforehand. I was supposed to have the picture. I was supposed to have been out in the timber for quite a long time, and therefore would have, need to tidy up before I come into town. Had some whiskers, so we had to wait a few days to get that part.
Many of Len's fondest memories have come from the people he's met along the way. He met many good people as a trail guide through the rugged Rocky Mountains of Canada near Jasper, Alberta.
We would start early in April. The people I worked with, they had a lot of horses, and the horses were raised out in the hills, out in the bush, just out in the rough country. We'd spend several weeks gathering horses in the spring out of the mountains, and then we'd trail them up to the places where the tourists would be, and work that the summer till normally around the end of August, about now, this time of year. And then the hunting trips would start. We liked those because we were just out and nobody to look after, just the horses and the hunters. And so we would go out with a string of horses, and our hunts were always 30-day hunts. They weren't short ones like they are now because of the travel involved with horses. We'd pack out. Well, I would trail. The one place we'd go to start out, I would gather the horses, and I would trail them out probably, say, 40 miles to the end of where you could get with a truck, and set a base camp there. And then we'd pack from there, move for about 3 days further out into hunting country, and so on. We'd use up the 30 days and come back to that point. Then I was always horse wrangler. I didn't want to hunt sheep or goats or anything, and so I was horse wrangler. The wrangler, his job was different. His job was having horses at hand whenever necessary, and the whole lot was actually depended on that. And so we'd come back to camp. We'd load that hunters and their gear and everything and take them back to town, and it'd be a couple of days before the next ones got there. Meantime, I would stay in camp and reshoe horses and stuff and get ready for the next one, and that would go again, another round, and then another round. I remember taking out a group. There were 4 hunters from Tennessee. two fathers and their two adult sons. They were they were something else. Yeah.
Over the years, times have changed, but you've always had to like what you were doing. Len always said that the life of a cowboy wasn't necessarily as glamorous as many people thought. You had to want it, but you also had to like it.
The good part of it was what your soul needed. As a cowboy, you liked what you did. You liked what you did. It was part of you, if you were real. And I liked being way up the hill, saddle horse or a pack horse. I even liked hunting cattle in the deep snow in the winter, very cold. That's who I was. That identified me, and I was happy with it.
Were you the only one in your family that went into cowboying life?
Yes.
And
Yes.
do you know why it is?
Yeah, I do, but I hesitate to tell. Off camera, I'll tell you.
Well, can you, what do you think it might be? Can you give us a hint? Can you give us a little insight?
I was going down, a friend of mine, the one who's getting married shortly, that I did her first, took her to lunch one day. She was feeling bad, feeling lonesome, feeling that she had a breakup. And said, come on, Jen, I'll take you for lunch. So I drove her for lunch and spent most of the afternoon driving around talking to her. We had a nice lunch and we were visiting. I've known her for years and years, of course, so we're comfortable with each other. And she wrote about this. It struck her so strange that she wrote a story about it. We're driving on the road after a while, and she looked at the scenery, and I'm driving along, and I said, Jan, who were you before this life? She said, what? I said, I just wonder do you remember who you were in other worlds? She said, who were you? I said, I'm not sure about everything, but I know I was involved in the Civil War. I knew it cowboyed somewhere. That's all I know. But I did. That's what I'm talking about. It came out somewhere else. No reason. And I believe that. And it happens to so many people.
So you felt that you were a cowboy in a previous life?
Well, at least I was associated with them somehow, and I know that I did some cowboying. And I know I was involved in the Civil War, because when I was a little kid, these names would come up out in school or something. General Longstreet, then so-and-so, Ross, or... it seemed to me, I could almost say, yeah, I remember them. You just about could, you know. And I know that this is very strong in lots of ways, lots of people. You don't get a child peeing this, you know, when they're that comes from somewhere. Yeah, I've become more convinced all the time that that's for these things.
I can understand from talking to you that you wanted to express yourself through your writing. Were you surrounded by writers? Better yet, why did you take to expressing yourself through writing?
There's a thing I'll tell you, Bill. I don't know, I never tried to tell you this. But the years I cowboyed, there were men I really looked up to. And there were others who didn't matter. I wasn't one of them. I was one of some kinds, but I wasn't one of all of them. And I always knew. I always knew that. I have to, this is more important than just punching cows. There's something more important here I have to put down. It's a feeling hard to express, but it's felt.
Would you say it's a passion of yours?
Yes, it is, yeah. Yeah.
And you've had it for a lifetime?
Yeah. Yeah,
Did anybody ever try to sway you from your passions, to talk you out of following your life?
well,
Doing what you wanted to do and following your dreams?
no, well, when I was very young, you know, I don't know what age, but all the kids, boys all want to be cowboys. And to me, that was stupid. that was a fad. That wasn't my feeling. I was going to be. It wasn't because I was going to outdo them. To me, they weren't real. They didn't really. They were just. I was.
We all went to the movies and watched a fair bit of television when we were younger. When you watched Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and stuff like that, did you enjoy what you saw? Did you want to be like them?
No, you can see.
Were you impressed?
Well, sometimes you did. You admired some of the moves they could make, and you thought, God, that's pretty good for a movie star, you know. But and at first, I never saw a movie until I was 12, and I remember the first one I saw, and I was quite intrigued with it. It was Gene Autry in South of the Border, and but it didn't influence me at all.
A lot of the cowboys that we saw, like the Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, and Hopalong
Yeah.
Cassidy, and Wild Bill Hickok, and so forth, you never really saw them do much cowboy work.
No.
They just came into town and
Yeah. And they were good men. Roy Rogers, as a person, I think, was really good man, and probably could have been a cowboy if he'd tried. You know, if he'd wanted to be, probably could have been authentic. Of course, they weren't. And they knew they weren't. But some of the older ones, old Tom Mix and Buck Jones, they were tough hands.
you've had a good life.
I have. Yep. I have. And I like it right here. I like these mornings when it's breezy and sit and talk. And I like that.
And the quiet and the peace.
Yeah, I like it quiet. But stand here, the cool and the breeze, it's beautiful. Yep. And that old horse, that old bald-faced horse, that was something else too, you know. I used to do a little, I had a niece. She's an odd gal. She's out in BC, has always been very psychic. My mother's quite psychic too, but she didn't push it. But this kid did. And we had some sessions, very interesting. And she had a guide that she spoke with, either by writing or Ouija board or whatever, you know, and she talked with him almost daily. And he made sense and told me many things that nobody could know about. I was asking about this old bald-faced horse. What about this old horse? He said, oh, he's always been your horse. Old lady. Boots. Oh, my man. How are you this morning? Fine. Someone will say it. I go into town and somebody will say, during visiting, just casually, what are you keeping busy at? I tell them, it doesn't take that much now. It doesn't take a whole lot. And but I still like to be around the stock and around the place and be out in the country. And I had no choice, seemed to me, that I just knew I got a cowboy somehow. Somehow I have to be a cowboy. Other kids, like all kids, lots of boys, grow up, want to be cowboys. It's only a phase. They thought that would be with me. And even then I knew that wasn't. They can play at it, but I am. I had to be, that was all. I wanted to be cowboy.
Len has pursued his life with enthusiasm and a sense of adventure. As we often see, life can bring an individual almost full circle. In Len's case, that brought a sense of self-worth and accomplishment. Over the years, Len has found time to express himself through his storytelling and his writing. With his congenial personality and friendly smile, he's left his mark at every cowboy gathering that he's attended. Though the times have changed, Len's stories will be with us for a long time. How did you get interested in writing and speaking in public in general?
I don't know. It's been with me all my life, I guess. I was not very well educated, but writing was natural to me. My mother was a writer, and we come from a large family, and they were all able to do something. But my sister would tell you that I just like to tell stories, and the more they were accepted, the better they got.
So not all of your stories were true then?
Well, there's a saying, the cowboy poetry is known that there's a saying that should never let truth interfere with a good story. No. Yeah. But, yeah, I do a lot of that stuff.
Were you always comfortable speaking in public, even as a young man, as an adolescent?
Well, we were pretty much isolated, and I was very, very bashful then. But, and then in a small community like that, you knew everybody, and that was your circle when I grew up in that era. And then when I left there, it didn't improve because I was way out on ranches, you know, in the country. So, you know, I was 28, I guess, before I got back to school. And I was afraid to stand up and well, I tell people, you know, I was the most bashful guy you ever heard of growing up. And I was so bashful that, if a stranger had said good morning to me, I'd have been stuck for an answer, sure, you know. So,
How do you know a good story?
you just feel it. And the stories, most of the stories I find are, well, in the telling. Some people tell stories, some don't. I can listen to my stories, someone else tell them, and they're missing it. See, when we're entertained at a gather or something, I embellish these things quite a bit. Like I was just telling you about being so bashful, and I'm telling my audience this at the moment, you know. And I said, you know, I just said to my partner the other day, I said, honey, could you in your wildest dreams ever imagine me seeing me up, standing up here chattering away the way I do? And he hesitated there a bit, that's important. She said, Len, darling, you're not in my wildest dreams. You know, those are the things that we, you know. There are times too, Bill, when you have to be relaxed and into the thing before even your good stories will work. You know, it's got to be what's the word for this? The right feeling there, the right atmosphere. So I've tried to do this different times when the audience was cold, when you weren't getting to them, and it just doesn't come out. And other times when the audience is with you, it's good. You know, they're better. I can remember I have some new neighbors at home. They're very good people, very intelligent people, and next door to me, we've become acquainted. We put on this gather at Austin, my hometown, middle of October. I didn't think we'd go, but I got up there. I was quite comfortable. I emceed this thing and sort of on it, and Doc was there, and all the guys, and I can remember after my new neighbors were sitting over their ways, and one of them said to me after, I looked at you up there talking, and he said, you were so comfortable doing that. But yeah, you have to be if you're going to do it. Like now, I'm not there yet, but I will be, you know, eventually. Yeah, fine. And I think probably I'm more comfortable with more people. Like,
Are you comfortable in this setting?
yeah. Yeah. It's
Is it the lights?
no, the light's okay. I'm just wondering.
The audience?
Well, we need. Audience is good so far, but we need more of it. Yeah. Yeah. No, just it's not quite like talking to someone deliberately. It's not quite like you're up there on stage. Yes. If you're on a set, 100 people there, so you talk to them, and it's weird, but you as you start looking for a reception from them, you know, and there won't be any here, there will be one there. So you pick out your receptors and go from there. I wasn't involved in, but it's an old story. It goes way back to Cape Breton, back 50, 60 years ago, when it was kind of a laid-back country back there, pretty rugged old people. And this one old boy lived by himself back in the bush, and he cut wood for a living mostly. lived in a cabin there, and his hobby was trapping bears, black bears. Apparently he got some from the sell hides or something. But anyhow, one day he trapped a mama bear, and they discovered that too late that she had a small baby cub, a wee tiny bear, very young. So he picked the cub up and he took it home. He fed it well and he got it gentle, and the cub got to be practically, he just lived with him all the time, got to be his friend. And it grew up and got big, and as it grew up, they just lived and worked together and everything. And the cub, the bear, he even sat up at the table when they ate, had his own chair there, and they did everything together. Then he'd go to the woods to cut some bush for a while, and a mile or so in the bush, and he and the bear went, but he always rode the bear up there and turned the bear loose when he got there. The bear would hang around until he got done, and then he'd show the bear, left the bear, and ride home. Again, routine. One day, the bear got kind of bored and just went on home without him. When he went to go home, he found, where's my bear? He went to where the bear was. There's a bear there. And he gave the bear the dickens, and he got on the bear to ride him, and the bear bucked him off. And, well, that's not like you, he said, and he got quite cross with him. He got a big old stick, and he gave the bear a sound thrashing, and got back on him and made him take him home. And he got him there, and the bear was still a little owly, so he said, give him another little beating. He said, no, I don't know what's getting into you. Then he discovered his bear was at home. However, by this time, he'd got this other bear pretty well broke, so now he's got 2 pet bears. I can't vouch for the truth of that story. Yeah.
Rogers Show, starring Roy Rogers, King of the Cowboys, Trigger, his golden palomino, and Dale Evans, Queen of the West, and Roy's wonder dog, Bullet.